The View's like really imploding. If you haven't noticed, in real time. I mean, unbelievable.
I don't know what people were thinking when they voted for him. I mean, this one statistic really got to me. He lost, during his term, 200,000 manufacturing jobs. He lost them.
Okay,
Yeah.
Not entirely true. She goes on to say how Joe Biden added them all. We're gonna poke some holes in that one. I'm setting the record straight here. And it's not just her, right? Ana Navarro piling on because Donald Trump happened to get the cover of Time magazine. And then you have MSNBC joining the club as well. And Tanya, they're skating on thin ice in terms of viewership being down, in terms of people just being over these shows. And Joy Behar is in a little bit of a timeout there because management, they're like, what are we going to do with this woman? What are we going to do with Whoopi? What are we going to do with Joy? It is a mess. And by the way, they don't even have any disagreement on the darn show anymore. That was supposed to be, right? What it was about. We're going to get into that. Plus, you know, I didn't want to have to talk about Jay-Z. I've like been avoiding it because it's just so gross and it's so horrendous. And you're sitting there going like, how does this stuff even happen in the world? How are there even people like this? Well, Jay-Z, you know, he said, we have to admit there's really, really bad stuff. I guess we just didn't think it was quite like this. I dug up this little clip, shall we say, from 2018.
He's bringing out an ugly side of America that we wanted to believe was gone. And it's still here, and we still got to deal with it. And we have to have the conversation. We have to have tough conversation.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we're having to deal with a whole lot of other stuff that we really would rather not have to deal with, right? Vis-a-vis some of the new allegations against Jay-Z, and of course the horrendous allegations about Diddy, et cetera, et cetera. We're going to tackle that. Plus, I'm joined today, coming up, by Dr. Kevin Roberts, the president of the Heritage Foundation, to talk about his new book and all the great things that can be happening right now for conservatives in Washington, D.C. and all around the country in your communities. Welcome to the program, everyone. Reminders to subscribe, to like, to share, all that good stuff. We begin today on Joy Behar. Joy in a little bit of a timeout. People not so thrilled with her latest and greatest accusations about Trump voters. Oh, those stupid people. I got news for you, lady. It's you who's not the swiftest, shall we say. Listen to what she had to say earlier today.
I don't know what people were thinking when they voted for him. I mean, this one statistic really got to me. He lost, during his term, 200,000 manufacturing jobs. He lost them. Yeah. Joe Biden added more than 775,000 jobs. And people voted for Trump. I think that they have been misinformed, misled by other networks. You know, people get mad at us. They say we're one-sided here. The statistics are
But I do think it was cost of living, because I think a lot of voters think of the Trump years.
There were more jobs created.
They think of the Trump years before COVID. So, like, if you're judging it by,
mean the Obama?
No, they're thinking of the Trump years before the coronavirus came and the unemployment spiked and the economy went to free fall. And it was a time that people had more money, whether you attribute that to him or whatever you do. But that's what people were voting on.
False information.
I think they were also voting on immigration, and one of the things he says is that he's going to return all these people to the countries they came from. He's going to make the countries take them, or he's not going to do business with those countries. Well, the countries are Cuba, Nicaragua, and Venezuela. We've got sanctions on them already. We're not doing business with them already.
Right.
Hard to get those dictators to go along.
Fall in line.
Right. That's one of the problems. There's no deportation agreement.
All right, we got to go. We'll be right back.
All right. She's not entirely right on that. Like, a lot of people were coming from Mexico, Guatemala, a few other places along the way. Thank you very much, Ana Navarro. More on her in just a moment. But let's start first with Joy Behar, who is ill-informed, shall we say. So while she wants to understand, she cannot understand how anybody could have possibly voted for Donald Trump, she thinks that they had fake information, misinformation. So we just got to walk her through the numbers, shall we? Because you know what? She's talking about, he created 775,000 jobs, manufacturing jobs. Well, here's the deal, honey. Before 2020, when the entire economy got shut down, unfortunately shut down, guess what? Donald Trump had like one of the best economic records ever on history. 6.6 million jobs being created in this economy. This is what you call an expansionary economy. This is what you call exactly what you want. Low inflation, lots of growth. You had good times. And then, all HE-double-L broke loose. You had March 2020 come along and things shifted. But you know what people remember? The greatness that was prior to March 2020. I want to compare and contrast with, say, Biden. She's talking about jobs overall. It looks like he added 765,000 jobs. Not quite the 6.6 million, shall we say. And in terms of manufacturing jobs themselves, while Donald Trump added around 500,000 manufacturing jobs prior to March 2020, Joe Biden, 173. I think we see who's winning this one. Do we not? I mean, not to mention wages, and one of the panelists touched on that. So wages went down under Joe Biden, adjusted for inflation. Now they can sit there at the New York Times and say, oh, you know, wages went up 12%. Well, guess what? CPI went up 16%. Thank you very much. So what does that mean? Well, if expenses are going up this much and your wages are only going up this much, guess what? You got less money. Compare and contrast with wages going up while inflation stayed low for a real gain of 3.3% growth during the Trump administration. And that's during the whole thing. So let's just understand the facts, shall we? Like, don't go with one random number, Joy Behar. They're not very smart there on The View now, are they? I understand she used to be a school teacher. God help those poor kids. Not very smart. Meanwhile, they're having some kind of meltdown because you see, Donald Trump was just named Person of the Year by Time Magazine. He's on the cover of Time Magazine, and they don't really like this very much. Ana Navarro making comparisons with the likes of Hitler, Stalin, any other horrible person in history that you can come up with. She'll take it because it could become new fodder for her on The View. Let's take a listen.
I was like, okay, at least this is a real Time Magazine cover, because you remember he used to keep a fake. What was his name? He used to keep a fake Time Magazine cover where
That's the fake one
that he used to keep in his country clubs. And also, just as you know, so you know, he's it's not always been great people that have been on the cover of Time, right? It's been people like Joseph Stalin and Adolf Hitler and Khrushchev and Khomeini. So he's in that kind of company as well. But that being said, I did read the interview, and something that caught my eye was he got asked about Tulsi Gabbard. And the reporter, the journalist, said there are foreign allies who are very nervous about sharing intelligence with her. And he said, oh, I don't know. I'm surprised to hear it. I heard that for the first time the other day. I mean, I think she's a great American. I think she's got tremendous common sense. This woman with tremendous common sense, Tulsi Gabbard, went to Syria, met with Assad, legitimized him as a member of Congress, then came back here and advocated for him, said that there was no evidence of crimes, said that he was not an enemy of the United States. Have you all seen the scenes coming out of Syria? The thousands, tens of thousands of Syrians that have been slaughtered, tortured, murdered. I mean, so you're telling me this woman went over there, came back and advocated for him, and she's got common sense? Our foreign allies are right to be nervous about sharing intelligence with her.
Even RFK's the lawyer today, I was reading, his lawyer wants to get...
They're not too happy. As far as Tulsi goes, you know, I actually think this appointment's going to get through as well. I think Kash Patel is going to get through. I think even Pete Hegseth. I'm going to be honest. You know what? They jumped the shark on that one. Their problem with Pete was, at some point, like the wheels just came off the bus because they kept hurling everything at him, all with anonymous sources. So guess what? He's going to sail through. At this point, he's angered, or rather they have angered the base so much because they're just throwing everything they can. I mean, going into his email from his mom, etc. At some point, it's like, okay, enough is enough, people. You can't get anybody on record? Wow. All right, so Tulsi as well, likely probably getting through here, because I keep saying, you know, I hear all these things in the background, and it's like, all right, come up with real stuff. Now, you can use the example of al-Assad, but let me just be really, really frank. We haven't necessarily throughout history always supported people that are so squeaky clean. And so I think one of the goals of the Trump administration is to make sure that they have a whole lot of different viewpoints in the room, because I don't know how you go from her being she goes over there, she has a different point of view, she consistently actually has a different point of view than the mainstream there in DC and the mainstream media, etc. But to go from that to she's a spy, that she's a Russian sympathetic spy, I mean, that is one big giant leap because she has a difference of opinion with you. So I don't think that that's going to fly either, but it's not going to stop them from trying. She's just absolutely apoplectic to the idea that he could be on the cover of Time magazine, but she's like, okay, it goes with the Stalin Hitler thing, etc. And she's not the only one. Okay, this is like getting repetitive, shall we say, within the mainstream media that's suffering quite badly. I mean, Joy Behar, I think she knows she's on her way out. This is one of the reasons why her home is up for sale. Did you see that one? Joy Behar's trying to ask for, look, you can ask for whatever you want. I mean, hopefully Letitia James doesn't get too upset about this one, valuing her property there in Sag Harbor, some 4,000 square feet at $10.5 million. That really makes Mar-a-Lago look like a deal at, what did Letitia say? It shouldn't be more than 19, for goodness sakes. But I think they see the handwriting on the wall, whether it's Joy, whether it's Anna. They know that this is going to become increasingly difficult for them, especially in light of the fact that ABC wants to sell, Disney wants to sell ABC. I don't know if ABC wants to sell itself. I don't think MSNBC necessarily does either, but they don't have a choice. They're going to be spun off in that spinco, so to speak. Well, ABC News, which produces The View, they're really struggling as well. So what's the future for somebody like Joy or Anna? They've got to try and find themselves in this new environment. I think in some ways, guys, they're actually lucky that Donald Trump won again, because what else would they talk about? For goodness sakes, right? What else have they got? Zip, zero, nada. They're just furious. And Joy Reid is furious as well. She can't believe that he won. It's a really, really dark day for her. And then you top it off with the Time magazine cover, going down in history for that one. Here he is at the stock exchange just yesterday.
Leader of the free world. He's going to ring the bell here in about 20 seconds. An historic moment at the New York Stock Exchange as we get this opening bell rung by the president-elect, Donald Trump.
Person of the year. Well, MSNBC isn't too happy about that. Joy Reid spelled it out pretty plainly.
Better or for worse is not much of a ringing endorsement, and we all know which one Trump falls under. And let's remember who else has been given this title in years past in the same category: Adolf Hitler, Joseph Stalin, Ayatollah Khomeini, and Vladimir Putin. In fact, Stalin won the distinction twice, just like Trump. Regardless of the company he keeps, we know how important these magazine covers are to Trump. Just look at this tour he gave the Washington Post in 2015 of his Trump Tower office, with a wall adorned with his various cover appearances.
Okay, so she's like, I can't believe this is happening. I can't believe this day has come. The man that we warned you about over and over and over again, that we told you was a fascist, was basically the next reincarnation of Hitler. Remember?
Of course, Trump is a Nazi time again.
Let's deal with Hitler, okay?
I don't think it's hyperbolic to say that. I mean, that is Mussolini, Hitler-like language.
Trump's affinity for Hitler was always covered under an umbrella of his stupidity.
Echoing Hitler's words.
Listen to this. Well, Hitler was duly elected.
That's right. Echoing the hateful rhetoric of Adolf Hitler.
Gee, tell me how you really feel, mainstream media. Tell me how you feel. As Donald Trump has said to them, and I'll use Kristen Welker here as the example, you could actually be pretty decent. You've actually got some potential there if you just weren't so damn biased.
All evidence.
Let me ask you this about January 6th.
I wish you could be you have such potential. If you could be just non-biased, you hurt yourself so badly. I'm telling you. They deleted and destroyed all the evidence. Everyone knows it. And you slough it off like it doesn't mean anything.
No, I'm just saying they deny it. That's all I'm saying.
Kristen, if I did it, you would be standing up in that chair shouting at me. And you know what I'd do? I'd say, you got me. They have done something so illegal. They have a committee sworn to And because it was so bad, the only reason they did it is because the testimony turned out to be in favor of me.
So he's getting at some of the J6 there. You know, he's going to issue pardons for all the people that are in jail because of J6. And he says, oh, you know, why not? Heck, look what Biden's doing with his son. And as this is all coming about, as we see Christopher Wray resigning there from the FBI with expectation that Kash Patel is going to come in and a lot of stuff may just get blown wide open, we just learned this. And can I just remind everybody that they insisted forever that they had no FBI agents there amongst the J6 protesters, that was just some kind of conspiracy theory and that never happened. Well, it turns out they did actually have informants, like 23 of them. So why do they just keep on lying to us? I mean, another conspiracy theory proven correct again? Come on, it's getting redundant.
Report reveals that there were a total of 26 confidential human sources in the crowd that day.
David Spunt is live from the Justice Department. He has got the news for us. David.
Sandra, 3 of those were authorized and tasked by the FBI to be there on January 6, 2021. We're coming up on 4 years since that day of the Capitol riot. This IG report specifically focuses on the FBI's handling of confidential human sources, or as we know them, FBI informants. For years, the outgoing FBI director, Chris Wray, has been pressed on reports of undercover agents. According to this new report, there were no undercover FBI agents. However, there were 3 confidential human sources tasked by the Bureau to be in the crowd on January 6th to specifically watch what the report states is concerns over domestic terrorism. Out of those 3, Sandra and John, 1 entered the Capitol, 2 others entered a restricted area. The report says the FBI did not encourage or authorize any sources to go into the building or a restricted area. In addition to the 3 confidential human sources, the FBI told there were 23 that were there on their own. Now, they had worked with the FBI in the past on other cases, but not specifically on the January 6th rally. Some of them entered a restricted area as well. And what stands out in this report, John and Sandra, none of the confidential human sources that entered the U.S. Capitol or a restricted area were prosecuted by the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office. Remember, this is an office that is still arresting nearly 4 years later and prosecuting people with this case. Now, in a response to the Inspector General, the D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office says the following. The D.C. U.S. Attorney's Office generally has not charged those individuals whose only crime on January 6, 2021 was to enter the restricted grounds surrounding the Capitol, which has resulted in the office declining to charge hundreds of individuals, and we have treated the confidential human sources as consistent with this approach. Outgoing FBI Director Christopher Wray, who announced that he would be stepping down in the next few weeks yesterday, has been pressed on the FBI's role on January 6th. Here's just one clip from last year.
If you are asking whether the violence at the Capitol on January 6th was part of some operation orchestrated by FBI sources and or agents, the answer is emphatically
You're saying
not.
no?
No.
You're saying no?
Not
Okay.
violence orchestrated by FBI sources or agents.
Confidential human sources tasked by the FBI are not undercover agents. These are people that belong to groups like, for instance, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, and then became paid FBI informants at certain points in time while still being members of their groups. And of course, John and Sandra, others are not part of any group and just decided to show up to the Capitol for whatever reason and still work with the FBI on the side and provide information. And we're, of course, waiting for more information from Capitol Hill to see if the White House has anything, the Department of Justice, the FBI, as this report just breaking now with the Inspector General.
Okay, so there's a little bit stuff going on here that you got to think about and you got to unpack. First of all, I think just the blatant lie. So there were 26 people, I guess 23 on the inside, 23 outside, that they had there that were at least on the payroll in some way, shape, or form. Maybe they weren't official FBI employees, but they were informants. And this is after the FBI told us, no. Now, the bite that you saw, the sound bite from Christopher Wray, was about whether or not the FBI had anybody like instigating problems there. And they're making the point, no, we didn't, you know, our people were like along for the ride. They weren't trying to instigate any kind of problems, because that's been one of the theories that's been floated. People have said, wait a second, was this some kind of deep state move to try and really tar and feather Donald Trump? And, it's just somehow miraculously, Nancy Pelosi has her daughter there shooting the whole documentary. She's a documentary filmmaker, which then gets played in a loop over and over and over again on television after it's sold to HBO and CNN. So that's one theory. But then the other theory is, why the heck, maybe we got a few things going on here, right? The question I would just say is, why is it that Nancy Pelosi didn't actually call in reinforcements when she had an opportunity to do so? That's one of the questions that's lingering out there. So then when the FBI doesn't tell you the truth and say, yeah, we actually had informants there among the public, when they don't tell you the truth, you see people back up and they say, wait a second, was this your plan all along? So you can understand that transparency is everything. And when Tucker Carlson actually said, hey, I'm going to run the videotape of everything that went down on that day, because they're running their videotape that was shot by the documentary filmmaker, one Alexandra Pelosi, in a loop, I'm going to show you something else. The next thing you know, his tapes were pulled. He didn't run them. He started on Thursday or Friday. He didn't get to run them the following week. Chuck Schumer's out calling for him to be fired, and sure enough, he was fired shortly thereafter. So once again, you can understand how the American public is sitting there saying, hey, this just doesn't add up. And interestingly, this all comes on the day that Christopher Wray is stepping down. So I think that there are a ton of questions there, and there are things that need to be answered. Americans want to know just exactly what went down. Of course, Donald Trump is very focused on full steam ahead, making sure that he writes the course for the nation.
Well, we're going to be having a lot of talks with China. We have a good relationship with China. I have a surprising relationship. Now, when the COVID came in, I sort of cut it off. That was a step too far. That was, as they say, a bridge too far. But we've been talking and discussing with President Xi some things, and other world leaders, and I think we're going to do very well all around. And we've been abused as a country. We've been badly abused from an economic standpoint, I think, and even militarily. We put up all the money, they put up nothing, and then they abuse us on the economy. And we just can't let that happen. We're not going to be abused anymore. We put America first, but we're also going to help other countries.
So this is his priority, putting America first, getting the economy back on its footing. A lot of people are like, wait a second, do you have vengeance? Are you vindictive? Are you going to go after everybody that went after you? I mean, I keep making the point that in some ways you kind of got to, because people did some really bad stuff, and you've got to actually start clean and make sure that this kind of stuff isn't happening forever, because it can easily switch sides. He could do the same to them that they did to him, except he wouldn't, one. And two, I just keep saying, you've got to actually make sure that the system is in place so that you are encouraging people to be their best and to be in politics. I mean, who the heck would want to do this? Letitia James still has a note out for him, right? She wants $500 million nearly in payment because somehow she knows better than Deutsche Bank what Mar-a-Lago should be valued at, or Trump Tower should be valued at. Rocket scientist that she is. Anyway, Donald Trump has a lot that he wants to get to, a lot that he wants to help America move forward with. This came up in a recent interview with NBC, and they tried to say, hey, are you going to do this, that, and the other? And he's like, no, this is what I want to do. Watch.
Going to do that? Are you going to go after Joe Biden?
I'm really looking to make our country successful. I'm not looking to go back into the past. I'm looking to make our country successful. Retribution will be through success. If we can make this country successful, that would be that would be such a great achievement. Bring it back.
There's so much at stake right now. We talk about all the policies from the border to energy to bringing inflation down. Donald Trump really committed to all of this. How does one see this through? I want to give a plug for Dr. Kevin Roberts' book, Heritage Foundation, Don's Early Light. He's all about taking advantage of this opportunity right now to really bring Washington back to a place where we can be saving our country. He joins us right now. And Dr. Roberts, I've been telling everybody about your book, so I'm glad that you're here. For the last few weeks, I've just been saying, listen, if you're looking for a good Christmas present, this is the one, because it really gets you thinking. Welcome to the program.
Well, it's always great to be with you. I can't thank you enough for plugging the book, for having me here. And ultimately, what the book is about is how we return to a normal country.
There's a lot of things that you have proposed. I mean, let's start with the economy, just because that's sort of my wheelhouse first and foremost, and what's so important to me. This election really, it's a mandate from the American people saying we're tired of inflation, we're tired of regulation, we're tired of taxes, we're tired of big government acting like a blanket on everything that we want to do and that we can do. How do we start stripping that stuff away? I mean, is DOGE the answer? How do we actually incentivize government to do the right stuff?
DOGE is part of the answer. In fact, as you know from looking at the book, Trish, there are three channels or three opportunities we have to fix things. One of them is federal policy. DOGE is the key sort of tip of the spear there. But the second is making sure we're paying more attention to state and local policy, something that conservatives in D.C. too infrequently pay attention to. But then the third thing is we have to take greater responsibility in our individual lives, focusing on institutions like K through 12 schools and universities and local associations. My point is not to be dismissive toward the importance of DOGE, but to say we're making a mistake if we think that just if we get Washington out of our lives with good policy and cutting the budget and doing really good things like dismantling the U.S. Department of Education, which I call for, that's not going to be enough to harness the full potential of this realignment that Donald Trump personifies. In other words, if in fact, as I say in the subtitle, we're going to take back Washington to save America, one of the ways we make Washington less important, in addition to making it more efficient, is to spend a lot more time, frankly, being virtuous citizens, being great neighbors and friends, and also paying attention to state and local policy.
You know, state and local policy sort of being the foundation and the bedrock, if you would, of what this country in part was founded on, right? This autonomy and autonomy from Great Britain. You want to see states having the ability to really have that kind of self-control, that self-governance. One of the things that I think has gotten lost over the last however many years, and maybe it's in part because of academia, maybe it's in part because the government has gotten so swollen, was to get back to what you're saying on virtue and the importance of small community, family, church, the basic educational opportunities that we're offering at that early level for kids. What's happened? Like, why has that gotten so, I'm going to use an extreme term, but so poisoned, if you would, Dr. Roberts?
Over the last 3 generations, what the radical left has done, Trish, is march through our institutions. They've marched through the administrative state, turning it into something that's not just bloated, but now, of course, is dominated by the deep state. That's an institution that we have to reclaim through the work of Elon and Vivek and President Trump. But even, I would argue, more importantly than that, even though it's more subtle, is that the left has marched through institutions like our public schools, our universities, our professional associations, also an arena you know very well, our media outlets. And so part of the way that we can reclaim this country through our own virtuous decisions is to make sure that we're paying attention to those kinds of institutions that don't necessarily meet the eye when we're thinking about politics and we're caught up in the legitimate euphoria about Trump's victory and the policy that's going to come. In other words, one of the reasons this has happened is because conservatives have been focused on their businesses, their families, their churches, the people who are right in front of them. They've also been focused on what's going on in Washington, D.C. By the way, I'm as guilty of this as anybody, so I'm not throwing a stone at anything but from a glass house, where we have paid a lot less attention. And the reason why the left has taken advantage of this is on local and state politics. And so I think that the next generation or two of conservative reform needs to be just as focused on reforming schools, reforming universities, reforming state policy as it is on Washington, D.C.
Yeah, I think about it at the state level, and my mom was on the school board growing up, and I remember that so vividly, those late school board night meetings. But it's that commitment, I think, to community that you really need, and you need that from the ground up as opposed to top down, which, you know, before you knew it, as we have seen over the last couple of years, suddenly parents were being labeled domestic terrorists because they were questioning some of the reading material that was on display, some of which was highly, highly inappropriate for young kids. You write in chapter 1, and I'm going to quote here, Dr. Roberts, to say that America's problems are spiritual requires no religious faith. it is an empirical statement. Tell me what you mean by that.
What I mean by that is until 40 years ago, when we first saw the beginning of the dip of religiosity in this country, measured by church attendance and other measures, the United States was a very stable society. It was a very strong country. And of course, that's good too. Our military was strong. Our economy was healthy. Basically, by every objective measure, up until about the time of the Vietnam War, this country was strong. But something was happening in addition to that very explicit example of a decline in spirituality or religiosity. And that is what I'm getting at with this more secular understanding of what it is to be spiritual. And that is a belief in the goodness of this country. Some Americans even mean that when they use the phrase American dream. Some Americans mean that even when they use the word freedom. By that, just a certain hopefulness, a certain optimism about the future. And it really does speak to to use the broad definition of this term, the spiritual health of the country. In other words, although as a man of faith, I would like every American to be a person of faith, regardless of wherever they would go to church. It's important for us at least to understand that imprinted on our souls, imprinted in our nature, is a desire to be free. But that freedom is not the freedom to do whatever the heck we want, because that can happen or occur at the expense of other people. It's the freedom to do what we ought, to do the right thing, not just for ourselves, but for our countrymen. And we have to recapture that in this moment.
For whatever reason, sometimes, one feels like we're lost against society because there's a lot of pressure to be anti-American. That's what's cool and that's what's hip. And it's like, no. Let's make it cool and hip to be pro-America again. I don't entirely, Dr. Roberts, even understand the theory that's motivating the left when they do this, because on the one hand, they want to send more weapons, more money to Ukraine. They want to have a strong military presence. And on the other hand, it's like not cool, right, to be America. But it seems to me that if you want a strong military, which the left seems to want, you're also going to need some patriotism to accompany that. Otherwise, everybody's going to desert you in a time of need.
Boy, you put your thumb on one of the great contradictions of the radical left right now, or just the left generally, even the not so radical left. And that is that, to use your example of Ukraine, they want the United States to spend even more hundreds of billions of dollars there, which, by the way, is not very right-minded. But they want to do that because they see that as supporting not the sovereignty of the American nation state, but the continued construction of these supranational organizations like the United Nations. And, just think about 10 years ago, Trish, if you and I were having that conversation, people would say, wow, Regan and Robert sound like they're pretty conspiracy theorists. No, this is the facts. I visit the continent of Europe often as the president of Heritage to try to rebuild conservatism there. And even there, where things are really bad, they understand that in order to resuscitate the conservative movement, you have to focus on the nation state. That's the thing that the left gets wrong. That's the thing that they want to end. They would rather the United States be sort of an equal member of the United Nations than each of us in the United States actually understand that our power, whether it's the foreign policy power you describe or the power that comes from a domestically stable society, comes from the sovereignty of this particular country. That's the thing that they disagree with.
Look, not to be crass, but hey, we'd all be speaking German, right? If it weren't for the United States of America. When you think back to the success of Ronald Reagan, do you see some parallels? Like you think about the tough 70s and Jimmy Carter and everybody's kind of down. And then all of a sudden, Reagan comes in and ushers in this amazing time of optimism. And with that optimism came growth, in part because it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? When it's like full steam ahead and everybody's gung-ho, you have better opportunities being presented your way.
The parallels between Reagan in the early 80s and Trump in the 2020s are really striking. I mentioned in the book that, like a lot of Americans, I had a difficult upbringing, really a result of the deterioration of institutions, something that we were talking about earlier. I'm not special because of that, but what I'm saying is that if I could achieve the American dream, which Lord knows I certainly have been able to do, then anyone can. And so this year, when, for example, Heritage was doing focus groups with all kinds of demographic segments. Mm-hmm. We were talking to poor Americans, working class Americans, middle class, of all ethnic backgrounds. What they kept saying was, in spite of all of the reasons we have to be discouraged about the future, we want to revitalize the American dream. And we don't care what Trump's personality is like. We don't care what he says on Truth Social or X. We want someone who's willing to take sacrifices for us. The parallels between him and Reagan are really overwhelming.
It's amazing. I mean, I love the book. I really want to encourage everybody to go out. Dawn's Early Light by Kevin Roberts. You can get this on Amazon, Dawn's Early Light, or wherever you buy your books. I mean, this is an important moment in time. We're on, I like to say, the front lines of history here every day. Dr. Kevin Roberts exploring it, how we all as a society can do better. Dawn's Early Light, go check it out today. Thank you so much for joining us, and Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I'm looking forward to a great 2025.
Trish, you're the best. Thanks for everything you do. We are at the beginning of the golden era of this country.
I love it. Thank you so much. Congratulations on the book. Isn't that the truth? Right? Isn't that the truth? Like the golden era. Anyway, this is the book. You can go check it out. You can get it on Amazon or wherever you get your books. Dawn's Early Light. But I love to think of it that way, right? That we are at the cusp of something massive. It's why, it's partly why I started 76 Research. If you haven't gone there, you need to go there. Go subscribe to Invest in MAGA. It's 76research.com. This is our free publication. Or if you're really just gung-ho and you want to start investing today, which by the way, I hope you're doing. And if you've just come to this show, you'll hear me talk a lot on this show about the economy, about the markets, etc. And I've been saying for a while that Donald Trump would win. And I've been saying for a while that we're going to be well positioned as a nation because of it. I have a financial research company that I started with a very dear friend, a brilliant stock picker, worked 20 some odd years on Wall Street and managed billions of dollars. And so I'm the editor for this publication. He really is the financial analyst. And so between the two of us, we've just come up with so many terrific names for you, 10 to 15 names in each one of the portfolios that you should be looking at, you should be investing in. And we have 3 different portfolios. We have an income builder portfolio, we have an inflation protection portfolio, and we have the American resilience portfolio. So it's all there for you at 76research.com. But if you're not ready to take the step of investing in like individual stocks, I mean, if nothing else, do me the favor of making sure you're in the S&P, okay? Like you need to do that. But go to investinmaga.com. Free for you. If you want to do the 76 report, it's $1 a month. Use code word dollar, DOLLAR. Code word dollar for the first 2 months, and it goes to $9.95 thereafter. But there are a lot of names in there and a lot of macro strategy for you because, listen, there are good things ahead. And that's the wonderful thing, right, if you would, about this administration coming in with the mandate that Donald Trump has. I want to turn to another story that I got to tell you, I've been avoiding, like really avoiding, since it came out, which was over the weekend. We've talked about Diddy before, because we have to talk about Diddy, and I don't like talking about it, and it's really pretty awful stuff, like just awful stuff. You know the accusations probably by now. There's 3 more that have come forward, this time men, that are coming forward accusing Jay-Z of some really just awful stuff. Before I get to that, I want to play something for you. Now, this is interesting. This is a soundbite from an interview that Jay-Z did back in 2018, where he's really knocking Trump. And he's saying, hey, Trump has brought out this really bad, ugly side of America. And I so fundamentally disagree with it, so wholeheartedly disagree with it. I actually think that the left has done a lot to bring out a pretty ugly side of America, especially as it relates to DEI, et cetera. So we're no longer looking at people as people. We're looking at them as what gender they are, what color skin they are. And, if you don't see color, then somehow you're racist. But if you do see color, before you know it, you're just tied up in knots. But this is Jay-Z, ladies and gentlemen, speaking in 2018 about just how bad Trump is. I'll just tell you this first. Jay-Z has exposed, or dare I say, allegedly exposed, okay? Because these are allegations, as has Diddy allegedly exposed some pretty god-awful stuff in America.
He's bringing out an ugly side of America that we wanted to believe was gone. And it's still here, and we still got to deal with it. And we have to have the conversation. We have to have tough conversation. We have to talk about the N-word, and we have to talk about why white men are so privileged in this country.
White men are so privileged in this country. Can I just say, like, I'm not a fan of rap music. And it's not because I like the rhythm. I'm a former musician. I guess once a musician, you're always a musician. I appreciate the rhythm. I don't like the lyrics. And I can't get beyond the lyrics because you know what? They're pretty disgusting. They're pretty heinous. And they really objectify women in a ruthless, just vulgar, animalistic, violent way. All right? So that's rap music. So that's why I don't like it. I mean, this is not the kind of music that you want your kids listening to. Thank you very much. And I question how much that music and that quote unquote art, what kind of influence that has on a culture, on a society, and on that community. Thank you very much. And then I read all the stuff that we've all read. So now I guess there are more allegations that are coming forward. And you know, I was going to play you a clip. Like, I don't even want to say it. So I was going to play you a clip of News Nation with Chris Cuomo, who used to be over at CNN, saying these things. And then I'm like, I can't even play that. Like, I can't play it because it is so insanely gross. And these sexual assault allegations are just not even, this is not stuff that we can actually say in polite company. And I don't even know what you can or can't do over here on YouTube. Thank you very much. But, let's at least get into the allegations that have come forward in terms of the women. We're hearing a very consistent narrative from everyone that's come forward about how they have been victimized and abused after maybe having a drink, and the thinking being that maybe these drinks are spiked with something, and then they're heavily abused. Again, I don't even want to have to get into this language, but this poor girl, who was maybe like 12 years old at the time, went to the VMAs, 12 or 13, some award show at Radio City Music Hall, and somehow got a ride with the driver to the after party, where she was given a drink that made her feel, quote, woozy, lightheaded, felt like she needed to lie down, and she went into a room to rest. And then Combs and Carter allegedly entered the room saying, "You are ready to party," and at that point just violently abused her. And I'm so disgusted by the entire thing. And these are, it's like one after another. Like, there was, first of all, the Diddy stuff, and there's a whole slew of those. And now we get the Jay-Z stuff. And then there are, questions about Jay-Z and Beyonce and how young she was when they met. And all of this, of course, is coming up under the circumstances. I want to go to an attorney out of Tampa named Robert Sparks, who had a pretty interesting analysis of this. And he's sort of making the point that, listen, this Busby guy who's got all the victims, he could have settled some of this stuff behind the scenes, and he didn't. He came forward with this for a reason, and his point is they've got some good stuff, he believes, from a legal perspective.
I don't know what Sean Carter's doing here. It makes no sense to me. Sean Carter, i.e. Jay-Z, gets named now as the main defendant in a rape case out of New York by trial attorney Tony Busby. We're seeing Sean Carter come out now and defend himself online, putting out statements. The thing that pops up is not immediately innocence and guilt. It's how did it get this far? Carter starts attacking Tony Busby, saying, hey, he sent me a demand letter and he's trying to extort me. Well, newsflash, and Jay-Z's people know this, that every lawsuit starts with a demand letter. Everybody gets put on notice that they have a claim and gives them an opportunity to resolve. Now, if you believe in your innocence, that's fine. But here, what does innocence have to do with this? He has too much exposure going forward. These are heinous allegations. He even says it himself. Now you're getting tied to Sean Combs, who's indicted and standing trial for racketeering and extortion cases, just horrific stuff, RICO violations. And now Carter's brand is being brought into this, is being alleged that he raped a 13-year-old. I hear you. I understand the defenses if you're Sean Carter. Hey, 24 years ago, you have an anonymous source, an anonymous victim. It looks like it's just a shakedown by an ambulance attorney. Well, look at it on the other side. Do you really think Tony Busby, who's a powerhouse trial attorney out of Houston, Texas, who's taken down monster verdicts and literally just got appointed by the Attorney General to take on investment firms on behalf of Texas, moves forward on a lawsuit if it's a bluff? It just doesn't make sense to me. You got to believe that Busby would say, hey, look, I'm not going to allow this case to come down to a he said, she said. Busby knows that the anonymous victim is going to have to be disclosed. They know this anonymous victim is going to have to take depositions. So there has to be more evidence. A bluff would be, hey, I sent you a demand letter saying that we...
Okay, so they're trying to say that there's more. And by the way, just to clarify, the allegations about the 3 men that have come forward, that's as it pertains to Diddy. So that's Diddy associated. The young 13-year-old girl, that's with Diddy and Jay-Z, allegedly, because she originally had named Diddy, and then there was celebrity number 2 and then celebrity number 3, which she recognized, she said, was actually a woman. So that name has not been divulged, but Diddy, in this case, now being tied together with Jay-Z. And so it's unbelievable. Like, this is, you sometimes you're like, is the world really that bad a place? And I guess, yeah, it is. 50 Cent kind of enjoying it because, 50 Cent can't stand these guys. So he's now saying, what the heck is Jay-Z doing? Producing the Super Bowl thing for the NFL. We got to get him out of there, I'm liking Jay-Z, forgive me, 50 Cent more and more. The more I hear about him and just how disgusted he is with everything, he's growing on me. Not that I like the genre of rap anymore. But if I had to pick one, I guess I'd go with 50 Cent. Balance of Nature is one of the sponsors of our show. I want to give them a quick shout out. Thank you guys for being here every single day. Thanks to them for supporting this show for so long. If you are interested in making sure you take care of yourself like I do, especially during the month of December, make sure you go and you check out their website. You can use my code TRISH, T-R-I-S-H. Call them at 1-800-246-8751, 1-800-246-8751, and get up to 50% off. You do get 50% off, not up to. This is like the best deal I've seen all year. I guess a year-end special, 50% off everything that they've got, plus free shipping. Just use my name, code word Trish. I take the fruits and veggies. They've got all kinds of things on there, though. It's a terrific product. I mean that. But we were talking about Jay-Z, right? And some of his comments and, white privilege, white privilege, right? White privilege. Well, I guess he would get an endorsement from the likes of Caitlin Clark on that, because if you didn't notice, she's Time Magazine's Athlete of the Year. Athlete of the Year. Now, I think she deserves that, but apparently she doesn't think so. At least she wants you to know that it's really because of all her black predecessors that she has this opportunity. That she says that she is a person of privilege. I'm telling you, like this language has just been absorbed. Thanks, Jay-Z.
He's bringing out an ugly side of America that we wanted to believe was gone.
This is him talking about Trump.
And it's still here, and we still got to deal with it. And we have to have the conversation. We have to have tough conversation. We have to talk about the N-word, and we have to talk about why white men are so privileged in this country.
Okay. So, Caitlin Clark's willing to talk about it. As she said, the WNBA has been built on black players, and as a white person, there is privilege. Enough! Okay, like just enough. Can we just get through all this, and can we just recognize people for people? Like, I'm so damn sick of it. And she's just, I'm so lucky to be here. No, you know what, girl? You're a really good basketball player. And you know what? If there's one place where it shouldn't matter what color your skin is, it's on the basketball court. It's on any athletic field. Because in sports, all that matters is who wins. Who gets the most number of baskets? I mean, this girl is talented. And so a lot of people have come out and said, what the heck are you doing? I mean, Meghan was one of them, Megyn Kelly. And then you had Jason Whitlock, who's like, whoa, what has happened? This girl is completely woke. She seems to be so afraid. So she was asked about this in some event, for Time, because she is the athlete of the year, and she doubled down. She went on to say, quote, I grew up a fan of this league from a very young age. My favorite player was Maya Moore. I know what this league is about, and like I said, it's only been around 25 plus years. And so she's trying to say that she has this white privilege, but it was the Black community that built this. I'm just going to say, can we just get beyond it and just recognize that athletes built it? Like, everybody is so trapped up in all this nonsense that you wind up in a society that's frankly less productive and less fair. Right? I mean, that's what DEI was. It's one of the reasons, remember, that I started my financial research company, because it had gotten so insane that like you weren't actually investing in the right things anymore. I mean, imagine, like, you can't invest in an energy company because the fund is like, oh, no, we don't like that traditional energy. Remember how they went after Donald Trump? They went after Donald Trump and they said, how dare he buy energy at $20 a barrel? And then sure enough, Biden was doling it out, right? Because it wasn't like ESG. We need ESG, we need DEI, enough. That's why you need to invest in MAGA. Seriously, I mean, this is crazy. Scott Jennings, he does a good job over at CNN. He took this issue on as they tried to somehow, back Caitlin Clark and, this is white privilege, et cetera, et cetera. He feels like I do about it. Enough already, okay?
Why is she being bullied?
Why is that wrong?
Why is she being bullied for acknowledging something that's smart, truth, and factual?
Well, a couple things. Number one, whether you're an athlete or anyone else, if I hear you use the phrase "my truth," I immediately then discount everything else you say, because there isn't my truth or your truth. There's just the truth. And when you start using phrases like that, it tells me that
That's not true.
Your brain has been captured by something that I don't really respect.
That's not true.
Number two.
That's not true.
Number two. The attention the league got this year was amazing, and it was all because of her. She is an amazing player. The arenas were full when she played in them. The TV ratings were up when she was on television. That's undeniable. But the league still lost like $40 million this year. And it's never made money. And to me, when you're talking about having respecting people who built something, what did they build? A league that loses money every year? She has the capacity.
What do you mean?
To
what did they build? What do you mean? What did they build?
What kind of a business did they build?
The reason why it's still up and still running, whether it's losing money or not, is because of these Black women who are in this.
Isn't it because of the investors?
No, stop it. Stop it now. It's not. I was in Dickie's arena.
Who pays for it?
I was in Dickie's arena. Let me just tell you.
It says more about the people who are getting offended by it than her.
I think they're just disappointed that she appears to have been captured by the woke mob.
You don't like the word.
And here's the disappointment.
It's the white privilege. Let him articulate this, because I want to learn something.
I feel a little bad for her, because she's going to learn that it will never be enough. No matter how much of the phrasing, no matter how much of the groveling you do, it will never be enough for the people in that league that hate her guts.
Why do you assume
they hate her guts?
Why do you assume
they do not?
I'm kind of thinking they hate Scott too. Like, Scott, I think they hate your guts over there on CNN. It's like 7 people all against Scott Jennings, who's becoming kind of a superstar. I mean, not that anybody watches that show. Right? Nobody's watching CNN. Look at the ratings. I mean, it's unbelievable. Their ratings tanking. Now they're like trying to do this new company where they're going to have the legacy stuff and they're going to have the streaming stuff. And they're like, oh, what do we do? Right? Because this whole business is so fundamentally messed up. But I'll tell you, you can start by not just trying to appease the woke mob all the time, because that's not working. It's not working for MSNBC. It's not working for the country, and it's not working for MSNBC, ABC, CNN, any of them, right? Like, let's just get real. Let's get real. I want to play one more story for you here, because this is terrific. You know that Jill Biden does not like Kamala Harris very much, right? Like, going all the way back to the 2020 debate, Kamala Harris kind of had it out for Joey and tried to paint him into the corner, tried to say he was racist. And he's like, what? After everything I've done? I mean, granted, his terminology was not necessarily always the best. He had a bad habit of calling grown black men boy, which, like, I'm just gonna start there. You guys wanna pick on things? You might wanna pick on that, all right? So he got away with a lot of that. But anyway, Kamala Harris was like, you were part of that busing movement, and I was this little girl, and da-da-da-da-da. So Jill, Dr. Jill, kind of always had her eye out for Kamala, and she was smart too. I never would have put her in as VP, but Biden, apparently got the edict or the order from one Obama, and that was just a bad decision in every possible way. I mean, they've admitted that they really couldn't give her the chance of being the president because black women would have been too mad, blah, blah, blah. You've heard all that, right? Well, Dr. Jill kind of spoofed her. I mean, is it me or is she totally dissing Kamala? I want you to see this clip because I thought it was pretty funny. I'm like, I think she's kind of making fun of her here and her joy, the constant joy. Take a look.
So I hope that you all feel that sense of, peace and light, and that just for a moment when you leave here today that you feel, I don't know, a sense of joy. Because I think we all need like this, we all need to feel joy now during this time of the season, during this time. So anyway, okay, now I'll start. You're all reading into that.
Yes, of course we're reading into it. Of course we're reading into it because the joy line, that's hers, right? You just kind of totally took over her material and then laughed about it. As you should. You know what? I'd be mad too. I mean, come on. They dealt them a really bad hand. There is no way that Joe Biden could have won because, I'm sorry, he's just too old. And for whatever reason, he was willing to cling. That's his mistake. But you really think that Kamala Harris was ever going to get to first base? The short answer is no. Zero, nada, no chance. And Joy Behar, as we started the show, is trying to somehow insist that the economy was better under Joe Biden than it was under Donald Trump. And it's like, no, girl, no. Because you know what? We actually had a vibrant, growing economy up until everybody screwed it up in March 2020. I told you they shouldn't have shut down this economy. That was just such a mistake of epic proportions. I hate to always insist that I was right, but I am right. I'm a right more than I'm wrong, that's for sure. And that's one of the reasons why you should trust me and Rob with the financial research company that we have, 76research.com. Just go over and get the free stuff, if nothing else. Just take a look at it this weekend because you need to start focusing on this stuff. I'm looking at your comments here. Jill voted for Donald, David Lorenzo puts up. I totally think so. Draco, rightly so, says, go woke, go broke. There's a lot of meaning to this. And Bruce, I think you were talking about this earlier when we were getting into the whole Caitlin Clark thing. Never apologize for who or what you are. It's so true, right? It's so true. It's critical to remember that. And I want to just get away from all that nonsense because it's not worth it. Can we just see people for who they are, people as people, and stop with the other stuff, right? Let's think about that. You guys, you're so sweet. I see all the cakes and the champagne glasses, and yes, it's my birthday, so I gotta go get changed into a nice dress and go out and celebrate tonight. So thank you for the birthday wishes. I try not to make a huge deal of it. I really, it's just another day, and I think that age is very much just a number. But I'll say this, you know what? It gets better every year. I feel like, I'm more clear-headed about what it is that I want as an individual, what it is that's important to me and to my family. And those are things that you don't really, you don't understand when you're starting out. The one thing I wish, before would you have done anything different in your career? The one thing I wish is that I had come over here sooner because I never understood this medium. We started this channel about a year and a half ago, just doing the show every single day. And so many of you like Leslie and David And so many of you have been here really from the beginning. Dom Baca, another great example of somebody who came to the channel early on and has really been alongside us as we've grown this. And the one thing I regret is that I didn't do this earlier. I had a producer, she's actually over at Newsmax now, superstar, young producer. I want to say this maybe was, oh gosh, a number of years ago. I want to say it was around 2017 or 2016. And she was like, hey, you know, this YouTube thing, you should get a channel. And I'm like, why? Isn't that like what people do from their basement or from their parents' attic or their bedroom? Like, what do you mean YouTube? She's like, no, it's really fascinating. And there's all these, and she was walking me through how you could learn all this information, you know, even about the audience. And I was like, wow, that's amazing, but whatever, you know, like I'm on television, I was on the legacy media side of things. And so it wasn't that interesting. Well, it was interesting, but it wasn't necessarily valuable to me at the time. And that's the one regret I have. Like, I wish I had actually been more present on YouTube back then and building, because once I was out on my own and I thought about, okay, do I go back to a network or do I do my own thing? And it got to the point where I think at this stage in my life, I wasn't really willing, especially after all I had been through, to work for anyone. Like, I don't want people approving my scripts and saying, you can say this, but you can't say that. But, oh, you can say this, but, oh, turns out media didn't like it, so you're out on your tail. Like, I don't want to deal with that. Like, you know, I needed to have my own, and it's kind of how I'm minded anyway. I'm very independent, and I just needed to do my own thing. So the one regret I have is that I didn't do it earlier. And I think that, you know, maybe that was in part because I didn't have to, right? I was part of that legacy media establishment. And I think what more and more personalities, especially ones that are willing to take risk and be out there in front of stories with an opinion on something and not afraid to share that opinion, what they're finding is in this sort of cancel culture environment, you are better off being on your own and being accountable for yourself. And so this YouTube experience has afforded that wonderful opportunity. And thanks to all of you, it's like you build it and they will come. We started out with nothing, and like we never, you know, we still haven't marketed at all. This is all thanks to you guys spreading the word and making comments and being part of this, and me committing to doing this live every single day. So I'm committed to this. Thank you for being committed to me. Thank you for all the wonderful birthday wishes. They are much appreciated. And now I'm going to go celebrate. We'll be with you over the weekend. Maybe I'll share some pictures. That's what I got to do, right? On this community notes thing on YouTube. So be on the lookout for that also on Instagram. And I'll see you right back here live on Monday.